Welcome back to everyone's favorite Jiu-Jitsu YouTube series, The Road to Blue Belt. Cue the intro. Today, I'm talking about training in the gi versus training in the no gi from a beginner to a beginner. When you're wearing a gi, for me personally, it's like wearing a big suit of grips. Everything can be held onto, your collar, your sleeve, the lapel. When you're wearing the no gi though, particularly when you're sweaty in your rash guard, everything's really slippery, you don't have many grips, so you're relying on grips like behind the back of their head, gripping the arms, and like grip fighting and wrist control, things like that. I personally train both. I train gi and I train no gi. Do I think that beginners should train one or the other? Honestly, I think that beginners should train both. There's definitely value in training a gi and there's definitely value in training a no gi. When I spoke to my coach about this, he had a really interesting perspective. He spoke about the journey to black belt as a curriculum. If you think about it like obtaining a qualification, there's obviously a curriculum in going from white to black belt. So during that curriculum, there's two parts. There's the gi and there's the no gi. If you simply trained one of those parts, you would essentially be missing out on a large chunk, if not half, of the curriculum in your road to black belt. In his opinion, you should definitely train both. And he's gone as far as to say that he will not be awarding any belts for people that choose specifically not to train one or the other, which is quite an interesting take on it. And I really like this whole curriculum analogy and the obtaining of a qualification, because it takes, on average, a minimum of about 10 years to obtain a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's a long time, and that's quite a lengthy curriculum. For me personally, I've been training both, and I think I'm going to continue that way for long into the future until potentially I'm at a stage where I'm experienced enough to choose one over the other. And even then, I probably will stick to both. Now, talking about which one I prefer, I am very influenced by some pretty strong no-gi competitors, so I do prefer the no-gi. The reason I prefer no-gi is I think that it plays to my strengths. I think that I'm a little bit better at no-gi compared with gi. The reason being is when you're in no-gi, as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners out there can testify to, particularly when you're sweaty, everything's very slippery. So if I get myself into a bad position, and as a white belt, that happens very often, it can be easier for me to slip out more forgivingly of a bad position compared with the gi, which I need to be a bit more technical. Now, does that mean that I think gi is more technical than no gi? Not necessarily, it's just different technique. But another reason why I prefer no gi is another strength that it plays to is my actual raw physical strength. So I think that I can leverage my strength a little bit easier in the no-gi because of the situation where you're lacking very easy grips to control your opponent. I find that when I'm in the gi, even if I'm up against someone that isn't quite as strong as me, if they're much more technically advanced, they can control me very easily. Whereas I think that the skill to strength gap, if you will, is shortened or condensed in no-gi at my particular gym. So that's why I prefer to train no-gi most of the time. But I definitely think that from a white belt to another white belt, I think that white belts should be training both gi and no-gi. But if you prefer one over the other and you just don't like training gi or you just don't like training no-gi, then go for it. At the end of the day, it's your journey. It's up to you which way you want to go. But for me personally, I think that I'll only choose one or the other exclusively once I've reached a much higher belt. Again, I'm only a white belt one stripe. I think that I definitely need to get both sides of the curriculum before I can choose to specify. So when it comes to gi versus no gi, I prefer the no gi, but I still train both, and I plan to continue to train both well into the future. So feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'm calling out all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. Let me know in the comments which you prefer. Do you prefer to train in the gi, or do you prefer to train in the no gi? And let me know why, so we can start a conversation and see what other people out there are doing and their experiences. Catch you next time.